Hello to YouTube chatters on the stream, and hello to YouTube viewers on the video. We're going to be watching some true crime today, as we tend to do. These are videos from my Discord. So if you haven't already joined the Discord, you can go to the react suggestions and shove some videos my way. It can be true crime or non.
Farting really loud.
That person's farting, and we like to watch fun stuff on stream. So if you're a YouTuber in any way, feel free to join the Discord. Feel free to come over to Twitch. We stream all of these reactions. That way, chat has a fun time watching. So don't forget to do that. If you're somebody watching the videos, if you're somebody watching the YouTube stream, also make sure to hop on over to the Twitch channel if you want to watch and have a better experience in terms of chat and being able to communicate with me better, etc. Totally up to you. My chat does a pretty decent job, I think. And then, yeah, obviously, if you're a stream watcher, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel just so you don't miss out on anything. We got one more, and it's an interesting one. Oh, chill out. It's by The Right Opinion. It's about JCS. As we know, there was a weird moment with JCS where they posted seemingly some sort of AI slop. I don't really know the full details, but this video does. So The Right Opinion has does a really good job of breaking down a lot of stuff like this. Also, I'm shown in this video from time to time, apparently. So that's cool.
Hi, chat and streamer.
Before we get into it, I'm going to take a quick break. And yeah, we'll get into it once I'm back, okay? Do we not like JCS now? No, it's, they made a statement eventually and kind of retracted doing it and was very apologetic, kind of was like, I didn't really truly understand. I was just trying to get more stuff out there because I felt bad over how much time was between uploads and stuff. They were basically like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. So I mean, unfortunately, guys, this goes down to nuance, and we can love some growth here because, I mean, we're gonna have to watch the whole thing to just get the full story as well. But at the same time, not everybody's going to know the exact same things you do and not learn about it the same way you do. Some people, unfortunately, have to make the mistake in order to learn not to do it. So, if we don't give people grace if we don't give people grace, they won't grow, and then we're not people. So, anyway. All right, gamers, let's do this. Let's watch an interesting synopsis on this weird little moment JCS had. Right Opinion does some pretty amazing videos, so I doubt this isn't. I have no doubt that this isn't extremely well researched and reported on, so I'm interested to see this full thing. As a frequent indulger of JCS's content, I think it's important to know. The fuck?
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Opinion, the home of a twat with too much free time. And in my existence on YouTube, I spent my fair share of hours and days, analyzing people while
Eyelash.
providing my thoughts and explanations on their behaviors. In fact, a lot of people have. That kind of content has become its own genre at this point.
Leave Britney Spears alone right now!
There was a time when people would just do shit on YouTube, no matter how
God.
viral or eccentric, and viewers would take it in, provide their reaction, and move on to whatever the next upload was. That initial reaction was enough stimulation. But times have changed. Now there is a mark of those more allured by a deeper understanding in how humans operate, and understanding what goes on beneath the surface. An interest in the psychological, I suppose. The best targets of these sorts of analyses are always those that appear to defy more logic than others, whether that be through just the extremity of their
The irony being
rationality,
his
or just through the
videos.
heinousness of the actions. People are curious as to what the answers behind such behavior are. Whether that's because they have a penchant for understanding people, they like to make sense of things, or they just enjoy a good story. Whatever the reason, it's clear that nowadays the how and the why are just as important as the what. It's not like there's a scarcity of potential video subjects on YouTube, but the interest isn't just restricted to this singular space. In fact, if you go looking, you'll find plenty of content analyzing celebrities, historical figures, and these subjects at the center of today's video. True crime. I mean, where else are you going to find a hotbed of so many curious characters to take a closer look at than those fresh out, or in, the slammer?
Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
True crime has retained its reputation as one of the most influential genres on the platform. With the increasing saturation of content, it's sometimes hard to draw the line between those who actually pursue this content out of actual desire to raise awareness and educate the viewers, and those who are just looking to cash in on tragedy. Though in some cases, the signs are a little more obvious.
Hi
And
everyone,
what I
welcome
think
to
it
my
is on his guys, that was Charles Manson. Yes. What? That's like a very, yeah.
channel, and today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you.
Unfortunately,
Ew.
audience expectations are so low that honestly nothing about this sort of content is remotely shocking anymore. And it's not like there's much that can be done about them other than hope that eventually people will realize that what they're watching is progressively decreasing their quality of life. It's a shame because true crime is probably a genre deserving of some of the most sensitive hands. You're dealing with cases that
The
have
video
consequences.
sped up. Nope.
Not just for victims, but also the accused. Being analytical is a necessity, looking at evidence, supporting and against, thinking critically about it, trying to rationalize exactly what might have happened, and putting it all together in an effective story that entertains explanations without leaning too heavily into speculation. Although there were plenty of channels that definitely
feel like
covered
I
these
do that,
elements, there was
maybe.
only really one slap bang in the middle of this intersection of true crime and analytical content. This was a channel by the name of JCS, also known as Jim Can't Swim.
You don't know that lady? No, I don't. You've never seen her? No, I haven't.
Franklin appears very calm and collected, but it's important to recognize that the setup is very unusual for a murder interrogation. There is too much space between the suspect and the detectives. Franklin is in a defensive corner with a table separating him and the cops, which may appear insignificant, but gives him some degree of psychological invulnerability. This makes it much harder to mentally break down a suspect and minimizes the chances of a confession.
Founded in 2018, JCS set out to focus on the more procedural aspects of true crime, most often using
Chris
interview
Watts.
footage of subsequently convicted criminals to craft a narrative, breaking down their interactions with law enforcement, and also looking at the implications of such behavior, with their quote, criminal psychology angle. The channel started as a dual project on YouTube and Patreon before moving exclusively to YouTube in 2020, likely after their videos started to perform pretty well. And when I say pretty well, I mean very, 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 very well. Their channel may not be the most followed in the true crime sphere, but as of 2025, they have multiple videos in surplus of 20 million views, with their most viewed video concerning Nicholas Cruz sitting on a staggering 66 million. Almost inconceivable for this type of content. With this in mind, it would be safe to say that JCS have experienced their fair share of success.
Now, I want you to kick me. Come on, kick me. Okay, do it again. Do it again.
Ouch.
Okay, you block it every time.
However, this isn't to say they hadn't experienced struggles either. They come to blows with YouTube a few times, most notably in 2022, when a series of YouTube's decisions caused them to announce an exit strategy from the platform altogether. In this moment, creators and audience members
There I am, Gary.
rallied around the channel and put pressure on YouTube to walk back their attacks against JCS. As many articulated at the time, Jim Can't Swim was a true crime channel that served a purpose on the platform, creating high-quality, detailed content that was enriching the community with its educational value. If anything, YouTube should be lifting them up. The people spoke and YouTube supposedly listened, stepping back and giving JCS the space to produce content how they wanted to. But what did that look like?
Breaking news in New York, the CEO of United Healthcare was shot and killed by a masked man near a Midtown Manhattan hotel early this morning. The shooting appears to be targeted, but police do not know why.
On the morning of December the 4th, 2024, United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was shot and killed by an individual federal prosecutors claim is Luigi Mangione. The social media response to this was otherworldly, and you wouldn't be blamed if, taken in by the fray, you'd missed the new upload from your favorite YouTuber, JCS. No harm done, you could always watch it later, couldn't you? Well, it turns out that this video was removed so quickly that a lot of people don't even know of its existence. An existence that represents one of the most bizarre, dumbfounding, and insulting creative decisions by an otherwise reputable channel. One that made them indistinguishable from all the slop they'd long been seen as the antidote to.
So imagine my surprise when earlier this month, after a 1.5 year long hiatus, JCS comes back with a video that immediately feels off.
A creative decision that confused all those who had been rooting for them barely a few years back and made them wonder about the identity and the intentions of the so-called team behind the channel. And ask the question, who are they to judge? With no clear answers from those involved and only one person connected to this circle actually providing some explanations.
People saying things that are incorrect about JCS myself. JCS got my permission to use AI regarding my voice. I'm also being compensated word for word like I normally would. They're simply not screwing me over, and their future uploads should have my actual narration on them.
JCS appeared to have much less to say this time around. How could a channel so fixated on a high detail of analysis lose all self-awareness in the space of less than an hour? Had Jim just found himself out of his depth, or was there more bubbling beneath the surface of this hot water he found himself in? My friends, let's try to analyze this true crime channel mystery.
Why wouldn't he just do a voiceover?
All right, so this is where the...
It could be, this is an ad, I'm pretty sure. I bet it's going to be something like he wasn't available at the time. I don't know, I'm interested. I'm very curious. Then just postpone it? Don't ask me, man.
Jim Can't Swim was launched in February of 2017. It's hard to exactly say when their first upload was posted, but we know they were gaining subscribers for any of their newest recorded content, so they likely experimented with the genre before settling on a style. Going by an old channel URL, they might have been known as Prison TV at one point, but I couldn't confirm if that was the case or just a placeholder. There are a litany of theories as to where the name Jim Can't Swim came from, and because I want in on the fun too, I'm going to say it came from this online grammar test. Nowadays, JCS is known for the large intervals between uploads, but back in 2018, they actually uploaded on a fairly regular basis. In fact, archives of their upload schedule say that they would upload at least once a week, often more. Their original upload model was somewhat different as well, covering different aspects of criminality, with videos not just on police interrogations, but on young offenders, inmate perspectives, and even some more general videos on subjects like narcissism. Most of these videos have been lost to the sands of time because they were removed rather soon after their upload, presumably because it wasn't long before one series stood out amongst the others.
Modern interrogation is a study in human nature. It requires a great amount of confidence and a complete understanding of social influence. Interrogators are essentially human lie detectors, highly trained in psychological tactics and mental manipulation, which begin before even a single word is spoken.
The most compelling police interrogations was a video uploaded in September 2018. Although it had tried other content up to this point, it quickly became one of their most successful uploads. The video in question featured a compilation of police interviews interwoven by a narrative from a commentator known as Kazoom, a creator who had been a YouTube stalwart since the late 2000s.
Isn't that what happened?
I'm not allowed to speak it without legal evidence.
The clip was shown by the prosecution in the trial. She received life without parole.
The video provided a fairly cursory summary of these interviews without too much narrative to break up the source material in question. In spite of the fairly bare-bones production, these videos likely provided Jim and his team with the first taste of real prosperity on YouTube, and they sought to immediately capitalize on it with multiple follow-up videos in 8 parts. These videos continued to outperform all of their other content, most of which they would go on to remove, and by January 2019, they had cleansed most of their content to focus on these interrogations. For it had given them a bright idea on how to take their channel in a new direction. One of their earlier videos had been the interrogation of Jodi Arias, which would be removed and then the topic reused a few years later, but it seemed to perform well and probably made them realize there was a more effective way to utilize this source material.
This is what is known as the pause technique. After the suspect answers a question, the interrogator will remain silent while maintaining eye contact. This physical demeanor gives off the subtle cue that he expects more information to be divulged and may already know more than the suspect realizes.
Their next video was the first of a 4-part series on Chris Watts, who become known for the rather unflattering accolade of murdering his entire family. JCS had planned to upload a multi-part series on his interrogation, his failed polygraph test, and his confession, with a soon-removed 4th part on his extramarital affair. These videos were accompanied by a far more thorough script than previous interrogation analyses. Alongside the credit to Gazoom was another by the name of True Crime Loser, who is also believed to work with JCS in some capacity, possibly script writing. They were clearly pretty savvy on SEO, as they like to experiment with different thumbnails, including this one where he was topless, which I suppose attracts a certain type of audience. Throughout this time, they also ran the channel in tandem with their Patreon, which they would upload exclusive content to. It seemed they had a pretty good system down, but nothing that was going to break any records. This was until 2020, when our favorite recurring character, COVID, hit, and more people than ever were spending time online. It was this time JCS took the very bold decision to discontinue posting on their Patreon, saying that it was becoming a streaming service and that all content would be posted onto YouTube from here on out. It's hard to exactly say what their reasoning was behind this yet, but maybe they just wanted to focus their energy on something they thought had the potential to really blow up. And they weren't exactly wrong.
After the initial statement you just heard, Casey was asked if she could take police to all places of interest. She happily obliged, and then proceeded to lead them to a multitude of fake addresses which she had nothing to do with. She then took them to her supposed office at Universal Studios and literally led 3 senior investigators to the very end of the building, taking over 25 minutes to walk to, before she finally turned around, put her hands in her back pockets, laughed, and admitted that she didn't work there.
In August 2020, the channel had its first real bump when they released
fucking awesome. I hate how awesome that is.
The video, There's Something About Casey, which covered the now prolific case of Casey Anthony. This was obviously a great sign for the channel, but they wanted to build on it, and they did, with a video titled Jennifer's Solution. Although this was a notorious case to those who were interested in crime, the name Jennifer Pan probably didn't ring as many bells for the general public. Yet this ended up performing better than their video on Casey Anthony. Why? Well, I mentioned earlier that JCS had been experimenting with thumbnails and titles. It seems that they settled on something around this time as well. The simple yet effective presentation of a shot of the interrogation room and a small quote that reveals just a modicum of information about the person at the center of the case. Around August, they had gone back over their old content and retroactively changed most of the thumbnails to be in keeping with their style, and clearly liked the results they were seeing. Jennifer's Solution, however, dropped with this thumbnail, capitalizing on catching the attention of fresh viewers and quickly accruing over 10 million views. The deceptively casual title and thumbnail masquerading the morbid would become their signature style and would be utilized in practically every future video. Pairing with increasingly detailed analysis of notorious criminals, the channel moved from strength to strength and provided exponential growth to the JCS team, alongside views that very few content creators as a whole, let alone in the genre, would ever see. In spite of all the traffic they were receiving, JCS maintained a relatively low profile outside of their content. Every now and then they give thanks to a creator for promoting their channel, and maybe post a meme here and there, but otherwise it was safe to say we didn't really know too much about Jim. We assumed there was a Jim because he signed off some of his messages with his name and a kiss, and sometimes he'd become a bit sassy, but it was always acknowledged there was a team behind this content as well. If anything, the social media post told us 2 things. 1, that the channel wasn't really most invested in social media outside of the YouTube channel, and 2, they didn't seem to have the most patience for them either. Yes, if they weren't thanking someone, they were normally not happy with someone, whether it was TikTok, YouTube, or Hassan. It was these moments though you saw the more human side of the channel and its operations. They were grateful for the attention, but appeared anxious about a variety of matters, such as their content falling into other people's hands, people impersonating them, and the issue as old as time, monetization. These were human struggles that many creators experienced, and when you see those emotions seep through in their words like they did with JCS, you begin to trust that they care about these cases as much as you do. With all that said though, they'd still crafted out an impressive niche on the platform, with a pioneering style that felt personal to them, but also possessed a wide appeal, backed up by actual substance that seemed to inspire people to take an interest in criminology, while also handling these cases with the respect they deserve. It seemed like they were setting an example for creators all over the platform. So how would YouTube repay them?
Not great. Not great. Ooh, I like that text.
By the time 2022 had come around, true crime content was dominating YouTube, with numerous creators drawing millions of views for videos covering the world's most dangerous and depraved criminals.
So there's clearly something compelling about true crime, and the way it lets us consume content about grisly murder from the comfort of our couches. But what does that say about us as human beings, and as a society? Are we all secret wannabe serial killers, nosy voyeurs, or both?
However, with popularity soon followed pushback, and it wasn't long before some began to ask questions as to how respectful and ethical much of this content was, and YouTube's own part in promoting it. Now, true crime content has always maintained a reasonable amount of popularity with the general public, but for YouTube, the cold feet around having their platform manifest into a dark place with topics that had potential to veer into apocalypse territory had always caused them to be quite censorious. Although Jim Can't Swim hadn't drawn any great controversy with their content, the style they employed in their videos, which relied on clip-heavy analysis of killers and their often grisly crimes, was bound to set off some alarms at YouTube HQ. JCS already had their fair share of friction with the platform, not being monetized, not having a YouTube support team, and having to fight tooth and nail to have their videos considered suitable for the platform. They went through a lot of stressful scenarios, however nothing could quite prepare them for the new year of 2022, where a couple weeks after their newest upload they came close to the platform once more. Tweeting on January 6th, they tagged Team YouTube requesting they respond to their ticket regarding one of the most viewed videos, Wrath of Jody, a video which primarily covered the criminal interrogation of convicted murderer Jody Arias. It had already been uploaded for over a year by this point and hadn't seemingly drawn any notable backlash, so YouTube's decision to remove it didn't make much sense, but YouTube responded quickly saying they would look into it. A small problem easily solved, right? Well, apparently not. Over the next few days, Jim took to Twitter to say that multiple further videos were being messed with, including their Christmas with Cliff, which was their newest upload, the McDaniel video, and the Nicholas Cruz upload, pretending to be crazy. In two quickly deleted tweets on January the 8th, they claimed YouTube were running ads on reaction videos to their content, despite those channels being monetized, all while demonetizing their own content, implying that YouTube were fine pocketing the money as long as it was beneficial to them. YouTube again responded to their other tweets tagging them, stating that they were looking into this, but obviously not fast enough, as JCS continued to vent their frustrations on social media platforms, now calling on people to mobilize in attracting YouTube's attention. The call was heard, with other creators reprimanding Team YouTube for their poor judgment and communication.
There I am again.
While demanding that JCS's videos be reinstated. With pressure mounting, many hoped that common sense would prevail, but a couple days later, on January 13th, JCS announced that YouTube had refused to offer the return of the videos and that they would now have to enact an exit strategy from the platform. According to JCS, YouTube would argue that their content had violated the violence and sensitive events policy. Obviously, JCS did cover these matters in a way that might blur the lines of monetization, but everyone broadly agreed that complete censorship was a massive overstep. There was more than enough context to understand why these videos serve some form of purpose on the platform, educating or at least informing. It seemed that JCS were all packed and ready to go, posting an announcement on their channel too. It was a very final statement with them thanking their audience for all the support, but accepting there was very little that they could do alone. But they weren't alone.
And a lot of people think that if the JCS videos are considered like sensitive topics or violating sensitive topics and violence guidelines, then true crime on YouTube is just dead.
Hearing that YouTube were driving one of their most prolific true crime creators off the platform provoked YouTubers and fans alike. Outside the fact that all these situations feel like they can happen to anyone, it just wasn't fair out of all the crap that people have served on the website. YouTube had decided to take umbrage with a channel that seemed to possess a beating heart and an actual purpose. People raised their voice even more, and the threat of losing a channel as significant as JCS also clearly rattled YouTube, who responded a few hours later, pledging to return with more answers. A few days on, the first positive update came, that JCS were working with YouTube to establish a solution that would return the videos to their channel, and 3 days later they returned with positive news. One of the videos had returned, and they were working with YouTube to restore the others. As comes with the territory of working with YouTube, it wasn't all plain sailing, and they would return a couple weeks to complain that the support team had aired them once more, even requesting their followers send them some video therapy to help them through these tribulations. In May, they took to Twitter to complain that Jennifer's solution had been, quote, shut down just after hitting a spike in views. The video was still up at this point, but at the start of June, JCS put out a tweet again stating this may be the end, and that the channel was, quote, being attacked, with YouTube responding once more stating their partner manager would be in touch. Needless to say, it was a roller coaster, with JCS admitting they were going through something personal as well. They shared a couple of videos about controlled breathing, which seemed to imply that this, among other situations, had really taken its toll. Over time, though, the videos did return to the channel, with the channel turning their attention towards posting some memes here and there. This shift of focus, occasional complaints aside, seemed to say that Jim Can't Swim was staying on YouTube for the foreseeable future. But the uncertainty of that future still hung in the balance. It was clear that for whatever reason, YouTube or YouTube's robots had a bee in their bonnet about the True Crimes channel's existence. Yet with all the power of the people behind them, the best they could do is keep on moving forward and deal with the problems as they came. Although people had reservations about true crime on YouTube, this drama made it clear that many felt that JCS was a different kind of crime channel, one that didn't necessarily sensationalize their topics and maintained a factual, educational tone. Nearly every creator from the true crime sphere has some criticism directed their way. For YouTube to take aim at the one which seemingly had nobody annoyed was one of their most unbelievable decisions. But it also went deeper than that, to a channel's passion, ability to create, and livelihood. This drama had shown another side to JCS that many hadn't really been privy to before. One very human, one which was stressed, one that turned to the community to help bring attention to an injustice. Fortunately for them, the community responded emphatically, bringing attention to a cause and providing their support in ways that JCS promised to repay. But how are they going to do that? Well, although the rest of 2022 wasn't without its issues for the JCS,
is this AI video going to be shown? I'm so curious about
it seemed that the core conflict with YouTube was over. They uploaded a couple videos on their second channel with True Crime Loser while working on resolving the main channel problem, but by the end of the year they returned with a video to glorious fanfare from all and an accompanying post explaining that after a back and forth with the platform, they had finally given them some tools that should help them navigate the intricacies of existing on YouTube. The video was uploaded later that day titled Yardley's Ex-Boyfriend, covering the murder of the titular individual and the interrogation that followed. It was presented slightly differently to previous uploads, without the usual interrogation room thumbnail, but at least it was monetized. The video performed decently, though not quite up to standards of prior uploads. Yet this did not deter them, and in the new year, they uploaded more content, covering the cases of Grant Amato and Sarah Boone shortly after. These cases performed better, with the coverage of Sarah Boone's case exceeding 20 million views. Finally, Jim Can't Swim were back in the swing of things.
People that don't know.
Although, to a few loyal followers, something just felt a little off.
This is 42-year-old Sarah Boone, who you just heard on the 911 call a few seconds ago.
Though it was a question hanging over each of the new uploads, the Sarah Boone upload in particular attracted some attention from people slightly concerned as to what was going on behind the scenes. Although Kizum was credited as per usual for the voiceover, he sounded markedly different to earlier uploads. Not in a way that most people who put this content on the background would notice, but definitely one that sparked a conversation here and there.
The ex-husband leaves, and the officers wait for investigators to arrive.
The accent's there, and the bass is there. It does sound like his voice, but something about the intonation is off.
This police officer was brilliant. Her temperament was perfect for the situation. The investigators simply asked Sarah to stay somewhere else for the night.
Is this what we watched? Or did we watch a different video on Sarah Boone? Oh.
And to come to the police station the following day with any questions she might have. Sarah stayed with her ex-husband, then showed up at the sheriff's office the next day at 3:51 p.m. with an entire handwritten page of questions. The
League of Legends jump scare.
We'll keep checking on you.
This police officer was brilliant. Her temperament was perfect for the situation. The investigators simply asked Sarah to stay somewhere else for the night, and to come to the police station the following day with any questions she might have. Sarah stayed with her ex-husband, then showed up at the sheriff's office the next day at 3:51 p.m. with an entire handwritten page of questions, the first of which was about when she's getting back her phone.
What?
First of which was about when she's getting back her phone.
The voice here just didn't seem to pay much attention to the syntax. Each line felt somewhat...
I never noticed that. You're bad at discerning this stuff? There's no... I mean, he's about to mention it. Listen to what he's saying about this.
Detached from the other, and there was this strange repetitiveness in how the vocal tone fluctuated that just didn't sound right.
It's very like... flat. And it's like if every single sentence was as if a new sentence was being formed. Yeah.
And certainly didn't sound like the voice we'd come to know.
The only problem is that the lead interrogator, really, really doesn't like Sarah, and abandons the task of pretending to, which makes this a significantly flawed, yet remarkably entertaining process to bear witness.
Now, Kazoom is a competent commentator. He's been creating on YouTube for God knows how long. Although you are prone to misreading sentences when reciting a script that's been given to you by someone else, he'd already proven himself more than capable of performing to a professional capacity in previous videos. This just wasn't right, and some people had a hunch that maybe this manifestation of JCS wasn't quite as human as the previous. That they had been flirting with something known to many as artificial intelligence. That didn't sit right with some. In spite of its increasing use and popularity, AI had grown a highly contentious reputation in the creative industry, particularly due to concerns that people may use it to replace actual human labor while stealing from it at the same time, but also just because it almost always ends up depleting the quality of the actual creative output, with more than a fair few examples already proving this point. However, without any clear indication from JCS as to what they were doing, a netizen bit the bullet and just asked Kazoom if this was indeed the case. The response was, well, uncertain. Kazoom
In this last video, it's similar to AI, but it's temporary. I'm still working with them. I can't go into details, but don't worry.
Says that in the most recent video, they used something similar to AI, without confirming any of the theories. A few people quit to respond and say, AI or not, it was definitely worse than previous videos, and that they also felt the script just wasn't as good either, that something was afoot. This was repeated in a small Reddit thread where a few people gathered to try and work out what was happening. There were many different claims, including that JCS had lied in the past as to the reasons why their content was taken down, and that anyone pointing out these lines and discrepancies would be censored on their platforms. There was this belief that something was going on behind the scenes, that JCS were attributing to publicly identifiable issues to keep audiences off their back. This was purely theoretical at this point, but it was also clear these concerns weren't just isolated to a handful of people, that if at least a small portion of people noticed the exact same thing, there's probably some merit to it. There was one reassurance from Kazoom that this was apparently a temporary measure and that future videos would return to the usual voiceover. It does make you wonder why they did it in the first place, but who knows at this point? All people would have to do is wait for the next upload to find out if this promise was accurate. So the fans waited, and they waited, and they waited.
But is this going to be the
All
video?
to no avail, and JCS's audience became increasingly impatient and confused. As far as we knew, JCS was back, but now they were quieter than they had ever been. Their socials were completely inactive, and people took to replying to their most recent tweets, inquiring of their whereabouts. Had they finally succumbed to YouTube? Well, going off previous posts, you'd think there would be more noise if that was the case. But they weren't posting anywhere else. Had the stress just become too much for Jim and his team? Possibly, but you'd think they would have done that at the peak of their conflict with YouTube. It all felt strangely uncanny, especially with the rumors surrounding the channel.
Who the fuck was
that at the peak of their conflict with the YouTube?
Profile is that? Whose Twitter account is this?
It all felt strangely uncanny, especially with the rumors surrounding the channel's team. Now, it was easy for people to theorize, given that they often didn't reveal much about the individuals behind the channel. But it didn't feel completely baseless either, especially now they had gone radio silent, barely a year after fighting so hard for their channel. It just didn't make sense.
Spilled water all over myself.
As soon as they had triumphantly returned, they disappeared into the abyss once more, and people were left wondering what exactly was going on with a channel whose premise and production seemed so straightforward.
I didn't get any water.
Would they ever return? And what would they return with?
Behold.
Well, towards the end of 2024, people would receive their answer.
Uh-oh.
But it was an answer that would only leave more questions.
Ooh, that was a cool intro.
The wait for the next JCS video lasted over a year, and some probably gave up in believing there would ever be another video.
I really never even picked up on that. That's crazy. That's like upsetting a little bit.
On the channel again. However, as a great philosopher once said, don't stop believing, hold on to that feeling. And on December 4th, fans finally received a new Jim Can't Swim episode, this one covering the cases of Amelia Bassoon and Joshua Ramsawmy, an admittedly fascinating case of a supposedly loving couple who rushed to throw themselves under the bus when interrogated over a double murder. This had been covered by other creators, but JCS could always bring their own signature style to the content, right? Well,
Behold, the sacred union that unites two souls into a lifelong journey.
What the hell?
On the 2nd of December of 2017, Amelia and Joshua got married.
The video's introduction is a completely gravity-defying experience, and certainly not in a good way. Whereas in previous videos, the slightly synthesized voice flew under the radar given it was matched by a script pretty detached from its subject, here the opening declaration, "Behold," demands a human delivery, and it just is not given it. However, if that was your introduction to the video, this wasn't going to become any less bizarre as the intro proceeds, trying to tell a story, but with the AI-generated voice immediately removing any intrigue there could be.
They danced through the night to their favorite love songs, which consisted primarily of Ed Sheeran, then continued the celebration in their luxury hotel room that was overlooking the river.
The visuals are equally confusing, with this weird dancing visual and comedian/musician Tim Minchin being shown when they talk about Ed Sheeran. I think it's meant to be a joke, but there's no setup or delivery, so I assume most people were just left wondering who the bloke with the guitar was. The delivery doesn't become any less stilted as they begin to describe the family house, with bizarre animations that don't seem to reflect the usual pacing of a JCS video at all.
They moved to Florida, bought a house, and absolutely loved it. Except the only issue was that it didn't have a nice enough kitchen.
Ah yes, the family house with 3 microwaves.
So they decided to commit first-degree fraud.
You can see how an artist would have delivered this intro fairly well, with the rosy romantic exposition being contrasted sharply by a tonal shift into their criminal behavior. But the AI voice doesn't register those nuances and the suspense it's meant to build, so it's read with no investment, as if their fraud was just as consequential as a grocery run. The next part of the video isn't as noticeably jarring. It's edited a bit strangely, but if you're a passive listener, you might be able to tune it out. And once the police interview starts, it begins to feel like a JCS video once more. But then the interrogation keeps going and going and going. And there's not really that much commentary either, let alone the sort of in-depth psychological analysis that people had come to expect.
She asserts that Josh left midday and returned at roughly 9 a.m. the next morning, claiming to have been out with his friends. The second detective will now contribute and engage the suspect from a completely different angle.
You know, before we met today, we obviously researched some things, and your relationship with Matthew was abusive. Would you agree with that?
Like, you could at least explain what the angle is, but I digress. The video proceeds now fairly ordinarily with some usual interjections until they decide to try another creative angle. The secondary voice.
The detectives re-enter Josh's room 14 minutes later at 5:52 p.m. The other narrator will now be taking you through the second phase of his interrogation.
I'm sorry, but who asked for this?
Putting everything else aside, just imagine being Josh right now. One moment you're in dreamland and the next you're jolted back into interrogation room reality, being asked if the blanket is helping with the cold by the guy who's controlling the thermostat.
Just as you might begin to acclimatize to the rather jarring vocal delivery of an AI-generated voice, you're thrown an even more synthetic voice that has no real reason to be there. I wanted to entertain the idea that it might represent the dual perspectives of the case of a husband and wife. But why didn't they introduce the female voice when they first changed perspective to the male subject? Why, for the last 10 minutes of the video, did their free trial run out? It just doesn't make any sense.
Wait, it's not even the first time. It's just randomly at the end of the video that they start using it? Oh my God.
And whereas I can say that at least the AI male voice is based on Kazum, the female one has no identifiable root, and so watching her try to make emotionally invested comments is painful.
Let's talk about the conversation you had with him about what he was going to do.
It's kind of like he's auditioning for the next Star Wars movie, and he's about to rehearse the most breathtaking fucking paragraph in the history of the franchise.
Fortunately, the narrative here is so minimal, it's easy to just tune most of the comments out until the video ends rather abruptly at the 53-minute mark. And I mean, the interrogation was interesting at least, but what the hell was going on for the rest of that video?
All that's happened here is the detective was applying an effective variation of pressure, and the suspect crumbled like a deck chair, well and truly folded like an overcooked noodle.
It's just a series of creative decisions that are so out of touch with popular taste that you begin to wonder how they ever made good content in the first place. There are moments of commentary, but sometimes the video goes on for minutes uninterrupted. The opening has no place in the video whatsoever, and that's not even to talk about the AI-generated voices. We know that JCS had been experimenting with AI in prior uploads, but people who were aware of this were under the impression that this wasn't going to last, and yet it had somehow worsened. The male voice had no tonal awareness in delivering lines that require human interpretation, and the female voice is downright laughable. What were they thinking? They had over a year to create something interesting, something that would bring people back to their channel, and somehow they thought this would work? It didn't, and the glaring AI was immediately picked up by viewers who expressed their bemusement and disdain for its use in covering this. Not just from a quality perspective, but from a moral one as well. And around 24 hours after it was first uploaded, the video was set to private, attempting to clean its stain from the channel. JCS would leave one comment saying that they heard people loud and clear, and that this would be fixed by the next video. But it left people asking one very significant question. Why did they break what wasn't broken in the first place? JCS had something good, and after a hiatus longer than most channels would take, they returned with whatever that was. What on earth was going on? People wanted answers.
Something that I love about the Right Opinions channel is how he lets the editors do their styles. You know what I mean? I think it's really cool. Like, they have like a baseline of how they do the production or how they do like the flow of the video, but like each segment is a different editor, and they're able to do like their thing. You know what I mean? It's so cool. Like, it's what makes these videos so fun to watch too, because they're so long, but they're so different in each segment for partially due to this. I think it's such a good way to keep people like on the screen. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, JCS's comment just wasn't enough to placate the masses.
You know what I mean?
But given that JCS had next to no social media presence anymore, these people's only recourse was to ask those who did. And really, that seemed to only be one person, Kazoom.
Hey there. Well, these NA meetings have shown me that I spend far too much time online.
Kazoom is a very outspoken individual, and outside of his content spends a fair amount of time on social media, interacting and sometimes arguing with others. He'd also answered people's questions about the channel before, so he seemed like the first port of call for those who were uncertain as to what was happening. It was a bit strange as he was still credited in the description as voicing the video, even though it obviously wasn't him. It's not exactly something you'd want your name to be attached to, right? However, when people did approach him, he didn't seem particularly sure of what was going on either. Responding to someone asking whether they would be using him again, he said he had no clue. And when approached for elaboration, he stated that his job was to strictly read the scripts he's given, with no other information available. When someone asked why he doesn't just take work with another channel, he states that he has hope that JCS will give him work again, though he's unsure of whether they will, as he doesn't really know why they switched to AI in the first place. He provides more responses a few hours later, which seem more optimistic, seeming more positive now that this was a temporary decision, and reassuring people that he is happy being credited in the description, and that he's being compensated in whatever ways the nearly 6 million subscriber channel can compensate him with. I guess they've fallen upon hard times that can only be solved with AI. A few days later, he posts again on X and YouTube, this time attempting to dispel any misinformation about his relationship with the channel, expressing that he gave them permission to do this and repeated that he is being compensated for it. Responding to people speculating over whether the channel was sold, he states that they have not, and he doesn't think they will unless they completely give up on the project. On YouTube, he also provides additional information stating that they've been away for 2 years due to personal struggles and wanted to rush out videos quickly, but now they understand their mistake and will actually take time in creating them. It's clear that obviously he's had some communication with the team behind JCS now, and this is the message that both of them wish to convey. But although there were some who reacted sympathetically, others were harder to sway. There were multiple glaring questions that this yields.
I mean, I guess in one way, I think it's fine that he still gets paid how he would have, but at the same time, I feel like asking this guy to put his own humanity within the commentary of a video isn't exactly asking much, and I think it's probably the easiest portion of the video is just asking him to be the delivery man. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's the quicker thing of the whole process, but I don't know, man.
Why would they need to rush a video when they've been away for nearly 2 years? How much faster is AI than just asking someone to record a video, especially when the audio isn't even that long? If this was a cost-saving measure, how much were they really saving if they started to compensate someone? How are they this unprofitable when they have a fully functional Patreon open that's been inactive for nearly half a decade? A Patreon that had over 40,000 patrons at its peak. How does a large, well-oiled content creator machine that outsources a lot of its production experience struggles that sets them back this far? All these questions were not really answered, and although that doesn't mean JCS doesn't actually have a viable explanation that addresses all of it, given how vocal they've been in the past to mobilize their community, it was strange that they weren't willing to just explain what was going on themselves.
If you've not uploaded in almost 2 years, there's no rush to get something out. You should come back with a bang. A well-crafted video.
People did not buy that this was an issue of rushing quality. Some believe they wanted to cash in on December ad revenue, and although it's certainly not impossible, I'm sure a lot of creators will tell you that December ad revenue hasn't been what it used to be for a while. They probably would have made more money waiting a week to put out a better video, and I'm pretty certain the quality control wouldn't have taken them more than an additional week, given that most of the problems they created take more effort the first time around than just doing it the way they used to. Although Kazum had disparaged these selling rumors, many were still suspicious that something had occurred behind the scenes that wasn't completely unrelated to YouTube. JCS were known for removing content, but a lot of their tweets where they spoke to YouTube and even interacted with their audience had been deleted as well. They removed their community tab entirely, and now they were communicating through their voiceover artist. It felt like a very intentional about face by a
Hey, what's up? They have food almost ready, apparently. Very cool.
Channel that had previously worked to retain a human connection with their audience. And I'll never hate on a channel for wanting to spend less time online. It's a good thing, actually. But if you give people breadcrumbs, they're going to want the whole loaf. And something just did not add up.
Why was a channel that prided itself on integrity, on not bowing down to YouTube overlords, and which appeared to prioritize the creative process above all else, resorting to sloppy AI-generated voiceovers with minimal analysis and no heart?
Due to how quickly they removed the video, discussions mostly remained inside circles of people who were actually following the channel. And as said, the shooting of CEO Brian Thompson coincided with the video release, so the irony was the true crime channel was at least save some additional hassle by an actual true crime. JCS would return a few months later with another video. This one confirmed to be using Kazum's real voice. Here, they actually address the prior situation, or at least they acknowledge it.
Channel wasn't sold. I remember seeing this comment. We've just been dealing with this outside YouTube related stuff. We'll make it up to you and start putting out consistent content. Give us a second chance, but in any case, love goes to you. I still can't believe you got us this.
Apologizing and pledging to do better. They attest the issues were outside of YouTube and pledged to make it up to their audience with more consistent content.
It was like a really bad.
Now notice how quickly he manages to pull himself out of the depths of despair and into casually talking about his house flipping show.
You notice how quick, like how easy it is to tell that that's actually him. Like here, we'll go back to listening to this.
The intonation is off.
This police officer was brilliant. Her temperament was perfect for the situation. The investigators simply asked Sarah to stay somewhere else for the night. Himself out of the depths of despair and into casually talking about his house flipping show.
Many fans.
You see what I'm saying? Like it's the delivery, man. It's the delivery. It's hard to explain. Yeah, the lightness in his voice. Like there's so much weight to everything an AI voice says. It's so grating. It's like, this is a case about somebody who did something really bad, and then this person denied that he did the same thing bad. This case took many days, and it was a very grueling task for the police force. Like it's so like, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. It's just like, it's like the same consistent, like nails on the chalkboard. We don't, why can you do that so well? Because I know, because I took public speaking. Because when you know how to speak and present correctly, you know how to not present. That's part of the skill, is you learn what isn't good, and that's what isn't good. Hello, welcome to the video today. Sorry for letting you guys down. The channel wasn't sold and we haven't quit. We've just been dealing with some outside YouTube related stuff. We'll make it up to you and start putting out consistent content if you're willing to give us a second chance. But in any case, love goes to you all. I still cannot believe you got us this far. You know what I mean? Like it's the consistent flat rate of the sentence, and it's like each sentence doesn't connect to the other, right? It's like for some reason AI doesn't know how to discern what sentences do and don't go together. So when it's just reading out, it just like reads sentence, goes to next sentence, goes to next sentence. It doesn't understand the connections between sentences nor the context that they can give each other. Because it's shit.
Fans were accepting of this, I think grateful that there would be more content in the first place. But others were less happy that it still didn't really address anything that had happened, especially their aversion to even mentioning what people were annoyed at them about. A few stated this was just another video that had come from their Patreon, which didn't seem to reflect the commitment for high-effort content, while others reiterated claims they had engineered their drama with YouTube and censored anyone challenging them on it. We'll discuss that soon, don't worry. But it was clear that amongst some, they just didn't trust JCS anymore, with former fans recommending alternative channels that seemed more reliable and quality-oriented. The view count also reflected this apathy. 4 million is great for a lot of channels, but it was a fraction of their most popular content, and given how often other creators had taken longer hiatuses and still returned to strong views, it seemed like this was a JCS issue. The lack of clarity paired with their inconsistency seemed to have just exhausted a lot of viewers into giving up on the channel. And that was a shame. But whose fault was it?
What?
I think it's very difficult for most people to grasp exactly how a channel without any changes to its personnel or operation can experience such a serious nosedive in quality. But that is exactly what happened with Jim Can't Swim. This genre is never going to be completely consistent because it is based on observational practice rather than science. But those with experience in the area of reading body language should never spontaneously lose grasp on the skill of building a narrative from observing human interactions. And yet JCS did not just do that, they did it while sabotaging practically every aspect of production.
I firmly believe that they used AI to write the script. They did.
The reasons and responses didn't quite make sense. The communication that people were given from Kazum almost implied it was a budgeting issue that didn't quite make sense. The communication that people were given from Kazum almost implied it was a budgeting issue that they were compensating in ways that they could, like a YouTube channel with a Patreon with a massive viewer base and in a genre that was at the pinnacle of its popularity couldn't somehow make sustainable money from creating content that made them popular.
It really doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
there had to be a reason for all of this, one that managed to explain all the confusing, contradictory behavior at the heart of this situation. Honestly, this is one of the hardest analyses given how little there is actually out there. But the first one has to be the one that JCS regularly put the responsibility of their dire straits on: YouTube.
You know, I've been in this cage for about 3 years, 5 months, and 17 days, but who's counting?
Most people love to point the finger at YouTube. I love to point the finger at YouTube because it always feels a lot more righteous to have some fury at the big bad faceless corporation who actually do screw up on a regular basis. Many creators will tell you that it is an often infuriating process to reach a human at YouTube who can actually help, and their policy enforcement is wildly inconsistent and very difficult to actually follow, particularly if you're a creator who covers more controversial and sensitive topics like true crime.
For this video, I've gathered all my YouTube knowledge into a full, in-depth, 1 hour plus course that'll teach you how to start your own monetizable faceless channel with AI. After watching this video, you'll have the entire blueprint I used to go from $0 to $150,000 a month.
It seems to me that it's actually easier not to try investing in creating actually interesting content when there's so much mass-produced crap that is constantly rewarded. To viewers sympathetic with their plight, JCS were a victim of not merely YouTube's ever-changing culture, but their guidelines. They committed a lot when they committed to YouTube. They had built up a strong Patreon following and chose to mostly put that on hold. It was clear when they came to YouTube they had the expectation that such content would be supported. Yet the reception was lukewarm at best.
This is Jeff.
From the start, JCS had a very strained relationship with YouTube. YouTube did not want to monetize their content, perhaps based on their old compilation videos, we don't know exactly, but they did complain on Twitter about it then. And although they seemingly cleared this up at some point, if you went on the channel, you'd be hard-pressed to find out on many of their early videos. They were not a channel that ran sponsors or merchandise or anything like that. They placed all their eggs into this basket. And although the views said a lot, they appeared to be shafted by the platform that they were posting on, when all they wanted to do was make interrogation room analyses.
You would have loved to have a motherfucker like me in Iraq, wouldn't you? I'd gut them fucking towel heads.
It's worth noting that Cliff never served a single day in the military. He also had no training whatsoever in combat sports or martial arts. Unless you count the made-up variation of Kung Fu he demonstrates throughout this interrogation, then by the end of the night, he'll have acquired approximately 3.5 minutes of experience.
However, we all know what this escalated with at the start of 2022, the ultimate transgression against a channel. The unjustified takedowns of JCS's content.
Dude, that is fucking nuts. What is happening? Why are they doing this? Like, why are they taking down the JCS videos? They are an incredible fucking channel.
Why was
They do
Hassan's ring
awesome
light so
content.
fucking bright in this?
I don't know why the fuck YouTube is doing this.
There are few situations more provocative than when a creator is targeted by YouTube, particularly when the website seems to target multiple videos at once. Every creator knows that means their channel could be up for deletion, and JCS had multiple videos taken down in quick succession. This drove them to the point where they needed to develop an exit strategy, one that YouTube ultimately averted, but only after months-long discourse. Who knows what that conversation entailed, but it did result in return videos that were monetized. JCS relayed that YouTube had given them more tools, but those tools clearly hadn't been of any use. And if their silence after March 2023 didn't tell you that they'd given up on the platform, their upload in December 2024 certainly did. Was their AI upload just an exasperated attempt from a channel that was constantly fighting for its existence? Were they another casualty of YouTube's often censorious policy? Well, it's a strange one, with one really burning question at the center of it. If JCS were treated so awfully by YouTube, why do they seek to consolidate their presence solely on that platform? We know that at their peak, they had at least a 5-figure a month Patreon page. If YouTube weren't treating them fairly, then surely they could consolidate their income by referring people to their Patreon and giving it a little activity. The principle of it is still frustrating, I understand that. YouTube has rendered your platform unsustainable alone, and it shouldn't have. But if it would keep you producing high quality content while you're trying to sort out your place in the online world, then surely it was a much better option, not just for you, but for your viewers as well. Yet they just didn't seem interested in this. One of the recurring comments I found from JCS fans was just about how they had actually been scaling back their Patreon since they stopped using it, removing videos and then recutting them for uploads. I don't know the specifics of this, but if anything, it said that JCS were trying to increase their presence on YouTube, despite the fact the platform had been evidently hostile to them. Why would you be relocating content to a website that has, by your own claims, repeatedly removed your videos? Surely it'd be a great idea to at least have a paid platform where you show what YouTube doesn't want you to. That's what the Patreon was set up for in the first place.
The whole point of a
wasn't it?
Patreon, yeah.
Maybe YouTube was to blame in part for failing to support a creator, but it still felt like we didn't have the full picture, which explained JCS's side of the story. So what puzzle pieces would help us fill that in? Well, let's return to the central conflict between JCS and YouTube, where witness testimony and physical evidence tells us an even stranger version of events than the one that we know so far.
I love that the segments are named after videos that he's made.
One of the more cynical readings of JCS's behavior I would encounter is that every decision was just really to increase their earnings. On the
It's such
surface,
clever
this
little
doesn't make
script
much
writing because he's making true crime references and then literally titling the segments after JCS videos, like the legend of yeah, like literally every single one. Jennifer's Solution, something about Casey. Like, there's plenty of them. That's so funny.
Surely the more financially sound decision would be to return to their at least 40k a month Patreon. However, a former patron commented on a recent upload by YouTuber Aziz, claiming that JCS left Patreon after crashing out over their content being pirated from the site, which of course caused them to lose money. Now,
this is actually interesting because I remember we watched something. We watched something of theirs, and I remember getting an email from his team saying that it was from their Patreon and to please unlist it. And I happily obliged. I remember getting an email because I think it was like literally labeled as a deleted JCS video. So I just thought it was like a regular main channel video that they got rid of. And I remember receiving an email from JCS being like, this is on our Patreon and can you please get rid of it? We're going to keep listening. I'm going to see if I can find that email.
Content will always be pirated, and this seemed like a strange thing for someone with 40,000 patrons to complain about. But we do know JCS were very, very protective of their content, while also regularly removing old videos and deleting social media posts. When someone tried to archive their videos, JCS threatened to strike them. When someone uploaded them onto an archive site, it was removed, probably at JCS's behest. And when people asked them about access to unlisted and private videos, JCS would refuse. In fact, when someone asked them if they could watch an unlisted video in September 2021,
Hey man, hope you're doing okay out there. I work for the JCS channel. Please feel free to verify this email on the about page. Yeah. There's obviously no issue with you using any of our videos publicly available on YouTube. Just open something else. This video is paywalled. Can you please take that down when you have a chance? Many thanks. So I said, not a problem. I reacted to all the JCS footage a long time ago. I had no idea you moved it off of YouTube as of now. YouTube's been unjustly brutal to you as of late. The last thing I want to do is contribute more hurt. And then they sent me another email, which I didn't even notice because it wasn't in the same one. But they said thanks. But they said, I realized you watched that when it was actually on the second channel. So that must have been where we saw it. It has since become paywalled, but this is a one-time thing. It won't happen to any of the other videos that you watch, I promise. Interesting.
One, JCS said no, with exception to the Prince Andrew one, which was a curious response. I mean, if you don't want someone to watch an unlisted video, just set it to private. For a channel that absolutely rocked the algorithm, JCS's understandings of the inner workings of YouTube seemed shaky at best. When researching this video, I would constantly come across these sporadic claims that JCS was censoring people in their Reddit who alleged that they fabricated or at least exaggerated any rift with YouTube. You can't really do too much with such a claim because what happened between JCS and YouTube can only be as verifiable as the public interactions between the two parties. But there was no explanation that would point to an absolutely crystal clear motive behind falsely claiming that YouTube was taking down your videos. And surely they were putting their own integrity at risk if YouTube were to call them out on it. Nevertheless, the question as to why they would censor people who showed evidence to suggest that they weren't being honest is too curious a corroborated matter to completely ignore. So reasoning aside, what does the evidence say? Well, the videos taken down this time were What Pretending to be Crazy Looks Like, Wrath of Jody, Christmas with Cliff, and the bizarre case of Stephen McDaniel. The best chance of working out where these videos were is looking at the archive. Such a good video.
It's that fucking cop being like way back here.
Stephen McDaniel does not have any clear archives around the time of the drama. However, the other three do, and they do tell us at least an interesting story. On January 13th, the same day that JCS announced they'd received no leeway from YouTube, the Christmas with Cliff YouTube video was archived, while the archive page says the video had been set to private. This is also the case with What Pretending to be Crazy Looks Like, which YouTube says is privated on the same day. But the Wrath of Jody video is slightly different. On January 10th, that one is archived, but it's unlisted. Now, everyone knows what happens when YouTube takes down a video. It's not private or unlisted. It's just removed. And sometimes they'll give you an explanation, sometimes they won't. One thing is probably true, though, that it's not the archive sites that are lying. Now, this doesn't preclude every possible explanation. It's still feasible that YouTube took down the videos and then negotiated them, but JCS left them unlisted or private while they negotiated their return to the platform. But it's certainly not the impression we'd received going off the tweets, and there are other red flags as well. First, there's the tweet a day before all of this on the 5th of January. This concerned annoyance at the monetization on their channel. It was certainly a coincidence that this came a day before they started making a variety of claims that videos of theirs had been taken down. And although JCS are known for deleting a lot of their tweets, this one was deleted more quickly once their conflict with YouTube began garnering more and more attention. Then there's the tweet announcing the exit strategy on January 13th. Here they show what appear to be guidelines relating to their videos removal. This was the first time they'd shown any sort of screenshot regarding this. The issue is that this isn't actually from YouTube's guidelines for content removal or its susceptibility. This is their guideline page for monetization at that time. And hell, in the screenshot, it literally says that. Even if we're going off vibes alone, JCS are very vague as to what's happening with their content. If you had any videos removed because of a violation of the guidelines, you'd end up with warnings or strikes, something that you'd think they would be mentioning. With this in mind, it's very easy to see why some skeptical viewers cast doubt on whether they actually had content taken down by YouTube. It would have been a massive gamble on our crime channel's end to bet on not being called out by the platform, but YouTube has such awful internal communications, they probably didn't know what was happening, and they are very hesitant to call out any creators, as we've shown before, let alone the larger ones. So the fact that YouTube didn't call this out isn't evidence it didn't happen. But still, what would the motive be for JCS? Well, with the context of other comments by viewers, it seems that money is at the heart of this.
It's an interesting concept to think of how you might respond to what would normally be an easy question.
After this kerfuffle, although not all their content was monetized, with Christmas with Cliff being removed from the platform entirely, their Wrath of Jody, and bizarre case of Stephen McDaniel did run ads, and all their future uploads seem to have ads on them as well, with them stating YouTube had given them more tools to navigate this. If what people are saying was true, they realized complaining about videos not being monetized would not evoke the same visceral reaction that complaining about videos being removed would. And to those skeptical, they had successfully duped the community into launching an anti-censorship campaign against YouTube, when in reality, they wanted to boost their ad revenue, all while allegedly censoring dissenting voices in their own community. To others who had known them from their Patreon days, this completely fit in with the JCS that they knew, a possessive and short-tempered channel that wanted their content to be strictly viewed on their terms. There is one more example that might tell us what's going on. The Jennifer Pan video, which disappeared and reappeared a few months after, while JCS claimed their channel was under attack and tagging then YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki. We know that from archives there was a brief period where a disclaimer appeared at the start of the video for self-harm, which would have impacted the views significantly. Archives tell us that by August this disclaimer was gone, and the video is currently monetized. What changed in that time? Well, we know that the current upload of Jennifer's solution is around 3.5 minutes shorter than the original. The current uploads on Jodi Arias and Stephen McDaniel are also shorter than their originals. In fact, this is the case for many of their videos, indeed. Had YouTube told them what to cut so they could be monetized? Maybe? Now, if this is the case, I'm not going to hate them for wanting to have their uploads monetized. If these are videos they put a lot of effort and heart into, then I think they should. But I also think there are people who wouldn't be too thrilled to find out their good faith support of a channel have been taken advantage of, and people who'd still be confused as to their beef with Patreon and how much money would be considered enough for them. Is there any explanation that fits in with not just everything we went over, but also explains the sharp decline in quality from the channel and the turn to artificial intelligence?
Whoa. Live action.
You know just as well as I do that this is all utterly confounding. We're like that one It's Always Sunny scene trying to connect these largely unrelated situations that nonetheless seem accented by the slightly anomalous behavior not expected of a channel of this size and influence. The truth was that as reasonable as the suggestion was that the channel had been sold or that ownership had changed hands, the evidence that pointed towards them always being like this was also present, and the theory they wanted more money even though they probably had a lot wasn't complete nonsense.
Probably about 5 things we could have got.
Unfortunately, not complete nonsense given the amount of people who just want money no matter what all the time. Like, just there are just people out there that the making the money is the part that they want, not the amount or not the like not a certain amount, not a whatever. They want like to know it's making money. You know what I mean? Like, they don't even care how much they have because they typically have a lot if they're that motivated by just making money. That's all they care about is like making money. They don't care about the amount or how much. They just want to make money. It's crazy.
And done differently last night, but it's unfortunate it turned out the way it did. It is.
He was found guilty on all charges at trial and sentenced to life without parole.
We know that they started off as a more clip-heavy channel and they struggled to monetize on YouTube. It's very possible that YouTube told them that their content wasn't original enough to monetize. So they decided to invest in scripting and recording more original content, which led to the change in style. In turn, this improved the quality of their content and drew more viewers to it. They blew up after optimizing SEO and creating effective and unique clickbait, but the number of views likely drew YouTube's bots to it, who demonetized a lot of their videos for discussing sensitive topics. Despite the potential to make a lot of money from their success, eventually this began to weigh them down and make their content less profitable than their Patreon days, which in turn led to them leveling the claims that their content was being removed by YouTube, even though this was not the case. After this was resolved, their videos were monetized, but still required a lot of effort and diligence, including at least voiceover work, but possibly more from secondary sources who they had to pay as well. So they began to focus on centralizing the process, turning to AI to minimize their outgoings and increase the video productivity, which would allow them to compete with mass-produced slop whose prominence had been growing on YouTube at that time. With YouTube,
of course, it's going to boil down to money. I'll be right back. I have food downstairs apparently, so I'm gonna go grab some. And that way we can, and then we'll bang out the rest, the 20 minutes left of this. Disappointing, man. It's disappointing. I mean, the last video they put out there seemed genuine and seemed effortful.
Let's go.
But yeah. You know, I can't blame somebody for wanting to take a shortcut if they think that it's fine. I can also respect somebody that will take one and realize the mistake and go back to where they started and try to like go the right way. Because once again, if we don't learn, we don't grow. And if we don't grow, we're not human. But yeah. Manipulative at best, which is not great. 1 second, I'll be right back. Oh yeah, it's time. Time to see the justification of slop by one of my favorite YouTubers. About one of my favorite YouTubers. While I create some of my own slop in two different ways, by making Twitch stream react content and also eating food that will slowly turn into poop out my ass. All right.
YouTube becoming more lax towards unoriginal content. JCS hoped people wouldn't notice while they passed off as original human-made content. Content which was neither human-made nor original, as many would claim they were just cutting up old videos they previously posted elsewhere. Unfortunately, unlike others will on YouTube, whether intentionally or unintentionally, they'd actually built up a reputation for creating good content. So their December upload was such a betrayal that people just couldn't switch off their brains and enjoy footage of a criminal squirming. JCS couldn't just cast aside their previous content this time. That's what made them JCS to many viewers. It's a compelling story, and would explain a lot of the erratic behavior that people claim to have witnessed over the years. It would also explain how a channel could suddenly just self-destruct in the quality department, as they were only really creating quality content to appease YouTube guidelines in the first place, up until they thought they'd found a more profitable alternative. At the same time, this doesn't answer every question, such as those relating to the nearly 2-year hiatus they took, which definitely seems to point towards some sort of organizational change. However, we know they've been messing around with AI before the hiatus, so there must have been some follow-through between those people working on the 2023 uploads and the ill-fated December 2024 return. No theory really explains the removals of so many of their videos either. When they were evolving, it made sense to not want to be associated with some of the old content, but they've removed a fair few new uploads as well that were completely in keeping with the channel's aesthetic. If those videos were ever re-uploaded again, maybe that'd explain it, but the JCS graveyard of content is surprisingly large for a channel that would want to maximize its income. And they have worked hard in the past to keep those videos offline. We also don't know if they just pissed anyone powerful off.
I just told you, I just read one of the emails they sent me about taking down a video that was exclusive to their Patreon. I guess this was before they said that they were sticking to just YouTube, but yeah,
There were some who speculated that the reason they still wanted people to watch the Prince Andrew video, despite it being unlisted, was because they've been subjected to some form of censorship for keeping it up. The desire for money also fails to explain their aversion to any other revenue streams. If they were really unscrupulous enough to use AI to cut costs, what was stopping them from using it to say,
"The suspect was upset when he found out he was being implicated in his sister-in-law's murder. It's in these moments he could have used better help."
It wouldn't have been any less taboo than the AI itself. Maybe they thought people wouldn't notice something like AI as it wasn't really picked.
Honestly, better help is one thing, but an ad read is much more. An ad read is less detestable. To be fair, at least it's
picked up widely the first time around. It felt like they knew it was a little naughty, but it still felt like the content represented an incompatible system of beliefs. We know there was some kind of mismanagement in handling the content creation side, but we have no clue who or their involvement with the channel. It's important to remember that this channel is often claimed to be a collective of more than one person, but we don't really know what that team does. How many people should it take for this process to complete, especially one that was going to be so reliant on artificial intelligence? How many JCS team members does it take to change a light bulb? The truth is that no matter what we know about a channel and its public conduct, there's always going to be some context that we're not aware of. There could be power struggles going on behind the scenes, diverging visions, spending habits that drag the channel down. Perhaps the taste of success went to their head and they blew it all in Vegas. Not to mention the outside YouTube matters that could happen to anyone.
Yeah,
maybe it's one person
black.
using the front of multiple people to present a guise of professionalism. Maybe there are a load of investors in the channel who just outsource the entire project. There are hypotheticals that exist outside of all the conditions that we're aware of. Nevertheless, one thing that definitely rang true from all the theories was the notion that regardless of their identity, JCS weren't who they said they were.
Sarah may have been hoping that that was the end of it. Really can't say that I blame her for that.
True Crime's quintessential channel crafted a public persona that seemed oriented to their audience's taste. They worked hard to use social media to build at least a somewhat personal relationship with their viewers, appealing to the threat of a large corporation on a creator's livelihood when it felt like they were under attack, and appealing to that humanity when they fell short of the quality that was expected of them. They were rushed. They've been struggling with personal matters, alongside other vague explanations that don't really answer the many questions that this situation yielded. It all hit very generic beats of creator struggles to the point where they don't even address what people were annoyed about in their returning video.
That's a really good point. It's a very I didn't really think about that. They hit a lot of non-answer answers. It's a great point.
It felt like a lot of the good faith that people had afforded
Very
JCS
politician.
had just been taken one step beyond what felt reasonable, complaining about YouTube's bots and how detrimental it is to all the humans who are trying to make a living before turning to AI themselves the moment they deemed it beneficial to the channel. If you were a supporter, you wouldn't be blamed for feeling a little duped, but you wouldn't be alone.
Unfortunately, way too many people.
We don't know how much of what JCS said throughout their lifespan was true. They probably did have their struggles. I don't doubt that.
Lifespan.
Unless the channel was entirely run by AI, I'd be surprised if someone didn't experience struggles. But I think what people found strange was actually connecting that behavior with the explanations. Something that JCS should have been a professional in doing, but maybe they'd had it a little easy this whole time.
She elaborates on the inconsistencies while David just sits there and nods.
The newest JCS videos are of course corrected by the standards that they're not objectively bad. There are some who say their videos are still just recuts of old content, and they may well be right. But for those who find their new uploads comforting, I'm not going to take that away from them. Nevertheless, the feeling that there was still a hole left where JCS once was couldn't be shaken. This isn't to say there aren't creators in this genre that can craft content at a high quality level. Matt Orchard was a recurring name who many think is the spiritual successor to JCS, but that content has mostly carved out its own space with a decidedly different tone. Nor is it to say there aren't channels that employ that clickbait style and use footage in a similar way to JCS. But the thing is that a lot of them do feel somewhat manufactured.
What exactly did you do to your mother?
I killed her.
How?
I stabbed her.
Okay.
While Sarah may have admitted to the killing several times by now, it's her twisted motive that's going to leave the detective reeling from shock.
We now know that JCS was at least somewhat manufactured too, but for a few years they were able to sell authentic interrogation analysis like no other channel had, or has since done. They had one of the most unique yet high demand niches of no to JCS. Is it to say there aren't channels that employ that clickbait style and use footage in a similar way to JCS? But the thing is that a lot of them do feel somewhat manufactured.
What exactly did you do to your mother?
I killed her.
I feel so vindicated
I
right now.
stabbed her.
Okay.
While Sarah may have admitted to the killing several times by now, it's her twisted motive that's going to leave the detective reeling from shock.
We now know that JCS...
I feel so vindicated that he's also roasting this fuck-ass channel. Hell yeah. I totally blanked out on what Right Opinion was saying because I was so mad about seeing him. Can I tell people to stop posting their videos in Discord? I mean, I can't. There's just going to be somebody new every time. That's like, I mean, what you can do is just ignore it. Like I do. Like what? What's the drama with this channel? Just completely unprofessional and uneducated. Not to mention clearly using AI as well. They emphasize body language as ways to tell things in crime scenes or interrogations, but it doesn't exactly in any way prove anything. They're just using hindsight bias to look back at things and say they're lying because their body twitched, even though they just know they're lying because they literally know how the case plays out because they're literally watching posthumous footage. And when I pointed this out and said it was very dangerous to imply that like certain things are evidentiary when they're not, he went on like a tirade for a week on Twitter saying that I was unpopular and stupid, and I only got views if I watched his stuff. To which I never replied because like, what the fuck are you talking about? I was just like, he basically got really upset that I was criticizing what is clearly low effort true crime content, which pisses me off to no avail. It's just, you know, it's similar to what he says in this video, where it's like, it's a slippery slope because people get really obsessive over the popularity and the numerical gain of sort of this content, but then they fail to bring the responsibility of what reporting on this sort of thing accurately and sympathizing with this sort of thing accurately really should bring. So there's people more focused on the popularity rather than the accuracy. So they make everything sound exciting and fun. And interesting, which is exactly why that channel emphasizes stuff like body language, because they have no fucking idea what they're talking about. So they talk about random shit that actually doesn't matter because they just want to say something that sounds exciting and clever, when in reality they're not. They're picking at nothing. They're just using hindsight bias to pretend they know how to analyze an interrogation room when they actually fucking don't. They're just going, oh, well, I know they're lying because I know how this case plays out because I watched this footage already. And I know that they're lying about this, but I'm going to look back a bit, see that they moved weird, and then be like, well, they moved weird, so they're lying when they're saying this. When it's literally, you're just using information they didn't even have in the interrogation room to pretend you know what they're talking about in the interrogation room, which is just not. They're going to respond to me on Twitter again. They're going to crash out again.
Too.
I gotta
Over a few years, they were able to sell authentic interrogation analysis like no other channel had or has since done. They had one of the most unique yet high demand niches on the platform, and their attempt to recover that has just not worked. And that's indicative of the shock to the system they gave so many loyal viewers when they decided to turn to AI. For those who are familiar with some of their past erratic behavior, and for those who never trusted them anyway out of virtue of the content they created, none of this was a massive shock. But for a large majority of viewers who had joined at the peak of the channel's success, all they had seen was a series of videos that were strong and entertaining, followed by an upload so atrocious that it would leave you questioning whether the channel was ever good in the first place. Well, I won't say their content was bad. There are a lot of aspects which are impressive, and you can see how they grew the channel to the size it was. But visiting the substance of some of these videos, it can leave you wondering.
Like, what do you mean
the game
was?
plan for this second interrogation will be a lot more strategic. Investigators will have studied the footage the day prior and will now have a greater understanding of Jody's personality. The initial tactic is for Detective Blaney to criticize and berate the suspect's character while simultaneously reinforcing fear and apprehension. She makes it very clear from the offset that the suspect's fabricated naivety and sickly sweet persona will not work on this occasion, and Jody's self-esteem will be broken down in a manner that would typically be considered bullying or abuse under different circumstances.
I briefly mentioned earlier, but despite the fact that JCS had criminal psychology in their name, it's a very loose interpretation of the word psychology. Anyone who studies psychology will tell you that you're not really interpreting face value behavior that much, but moreover you're connecting the behavior to all the scientific processes that occur, something that JCS has barely ever done. Their style of analysis is always post-mortem, so there's the confidence in interpreting a liar with the knowledge that this was a criminal. They seem more familiar with police procedure than actually knowing how effective it is in these scenarios. There's an excellent video actually by YouTuber Mooncat who breaks down JCS amongst other channels, illuminating how often misguided this kind of analysis can be.
Oh,
but
wait,
what's more, channels,
I debunked every body language expert on YouTube. Fire.
This video
I just need that on my
illuminating
watch history so
how
I can
often
watch
misguided this kind of analysis can be.
But what's more telling is how his demeanor abruptly stops and then completely switches right before he looks in the direction of the camera.
This entire analysis is just wild conjecture. No one can diagnose a person's mental state apart from a qualified psychologist who interacts with their patient. Absolutely not a random YouTuber who's only watched one interrogation tape.
And once again, it's literally seeing, like, it. I mean, I don't know if she gets into it, but like it's using information that you have that they did not to pretend like you know the ongoings of an interrogation room. It does not happen. It does not. It's not how it works.
JCS offers no clarification that this is all based on opinion. This is just straight up rolled off the script as if it were fact. These videos are often accurate about the strategies being employed by officers, but will use examples of cases wherein the subject was obviously guilty, giving the impression that these techniques are getting dangerous people off the streets, when in reality, these techniques are also putting innocent people in jail.
People going through
Oh, it sounds like such a good video. Fuck yeah. I can't wait to watch that.
Through extreme grief can be just as wild, erratic, and unpredictable as someone who is guilty. And that doesn't even begin to account for the often underdiagnosed mental and developmental conditions that might cause someone to act differently.
Hello, chat. Oh God, I haven't existed in so long. I changed my username.
Thousands of police detentions and voluntary interviews of vulnerable people may have been carried out without an appropriate adult present, and a report has been found.
Number of times that autistic people are completely misunderstood just because they express feelings differently doesn't suddenly mean they killed someone. We simply cannot categorize these things, and there are more than a handful of cases where police officers have used techniques that JCS acknowledged to extract confessions that are subsequently overturned or viewed as given under duress. Something that JCS knows all too well themselves, as they did make one video which was a departure from this norm.
Hindsight is 20/20. Everyone is well aware of this aphorism, and what's fascinating is that it not only applies, but is far more compatible to the innocent than it is to the guilty.
With this in mind, I'd be surprised to find too many self-respecting forensic psychologists who endorse this kind of content, and yet millions on top of millions of the general public did. Why?
I just find it strange that you're not upset by all what's going on right now.
This was already a closed case before the interrogation started. The detective already knows she is responsible for the crimes, and unbeknownst to Adele, he is only trying to see if there are any signs of remorse or lack of remorse for the crimes committed.
The Crown's evidence, the judge said, just didn't meet that high bar of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that Adele Sorella committed the crime.
Well, probably because it wasn't psychology. It was entertainment disguised as it. With the fact that many of these cases were done and dusted, it enabled JCS to build a narrative that was interesting, difficult to dispute without defending someone who had already been prosecuted, but as unverifiable as it was unfalsifiable. The idea of psychology probably made viewers feel a bit smarter in learning about some.
Which is why when I watch interrogations and say something and then like immediately the video's bringing it up, especially when it's psychological or criminologically like related, like the interrogation. That's why I feel so fucking good, because I'm picking up on it without knowing. I mean, like, there are some cases that are very obvious on who's doing what or like who did what, but there are plenty of good channels that leave like ambiguity in the title and in the thumbnail as to like who actually did the who did whatever we're watching. And it feels really good when I like don't have that prior information and then I discuss it before the video brings it up. Always feels really good.
Stuff. Maybe it gave an impression of this coming from an academic source, but it's fluff. And if anything, JCS merely tapped into the behavioral aspect of human nature to find answers and explanations where it will probably be impossible to do so, especially just from watching someone through a screen. That's why I won't sit here and say that the fact that JCS has acted in ways they probably analyze in their subjects is positive confirmation of any theory we've spoken about today. The truth is, physical evidence is more valuable than any behavioral analysis, and shifty behavior can explain a public backlash, but it can never prove guilt.
Yep.
Like JCS, interpreting what is visible is never actually the full picture. But for individuals who emphasize awareness of rationale and reasoning, they know you don't rush a return video after a nearly 2-year hiatus out of sincere worry over not delivering content. They know you don't suddenly desert all the aspects that made your videos effective without understanding the ramifications. And they know you don't swap out the most iconic aspect of a channel for a pale AI imitation if it makes no financial or ergonomic difference to you. The ultimate betrayal in the JCS saga was the fact that they're a channel built on the idea that people like to explain what's in front of them, but they couldn't explain themselves. And I think for as long as that is true, the JCS-shaped hole will always be there. Did those experiencing a form of struggle just take erratic behavior to the next level in attempting to manage it? Or did a mask that had been slipping occasionally just fall off in the end? It's a question that JCS and other channels, myself included, have asked over the years. But in the end, does it even matter?
Sorry, random call from my wife.
When introducing the subject, I acknowledged AI with a degree of disdain. I think it's important to note that I don't hate AI, I just hate how a lot of people use it. JCS falls into the category of a lot of people. Particularly amongst creatives, it's just a really unpopular choice. Although it wasn't picked up too much when the video was first released and subsequently deleted, the sheer audacity of it and lack of justification has attracted a stream of curious eyes who want to try and scratch beneath the surface to understand exactly why they did this. even though nobody's been given a good reason.
JCS isn't some content farm channel and never has been. Even at their most successful, they never resorted to rushing out videos for cash and always went at their own pace, even if it meant keeping the fans waiting. So why, after all of these years, did they suddenly start feeling the pressure? And why did they resort to using a terrible sounding AI voiceover and strange uncanny editing when they have a fan base of millions and millions of followers who they could risk disappointing or worse, losing?
I postulate that the explanation as to why JCS haven't really given anybody a good reason as to why they attempted to overhaul the channel and replace their voiceover artist with whatever that was is because there probably wasn't a good reason. We practically explored every angle, and even if we take the most cynical perspective, they were attempting to turn their channel into the sloppiest of slot farms.
Typically, there's not a good excuse, period. So, I mean, yeah.
It wouldn't even be good at that going off their upload schedule. I don't think there's an answer that doesn't involve some sort of contradiction or backtracking on what we've heard previously, or a significant revelation that we just can't account for. The essence of the matter is that regardless of who they had compensated, how ethically they went about it, or how much stress they may have been under, JCS took an AI-generated voice to replace the work of someone who very sincerely wanted it, didn't acknowledge it, even crediting the original voice artist in the description, which gave more than a few people the impression that this was a human, and they thought it was a good idea for the channel. They were apologetic when people expressed their dissatisfaction, but many just didn't really buy the fact that they'd made a sincere mistake and rushed it out, especially given they'd done this the year before. AI aside, newlyweds tell on each other is a video so lazy that it couldn't have been produced with the hope of creating something of good quality, and yet it's so blatantly awful that surely its creators couldn't have expected people not to notice the sharp decline in quality, nor surely they could not be aware of the ire it might draw, given that people are quite critical of content that isn't dealing with its subject matters respectfully. Either this was content from people who had no self-awareness whatsoever, or the channel was being run by those who had completely given up on YouTube, both of which should probably steer you away from making deeply personal analyses of other individuals in front of millions of viewers, whether they are terrible people or not. The thing about analytical content is you can be wrong. I can be wrong. We all can be wrong. But this isn't just internet affairs, which are still consequential, by the way. These are real-life people who are forfeiting their privacy and prospectively forfeiting...
Holy moly. Paperback, thanks for the raid, dude. We're watching The Right Opinion, talk about JCS, which is a channel I've often watched and discussed because I have a criminology degree and we watch a lot of true crime, and it's disappointing. Yeah, appreciate the raid, man. We're chilling. We're almost done with this video though.
Their freedom for the rest of their lives. If you can pass judgment incorrectly on a guilty person, you can pass judgment incorrectly on a not guilty person as well. This doesn't mean I think this content doesn't have a right to exist, but the least you can do is try. How can you care about the integrity of such consequential behavioral interpretations if you're willing to half-arse it? It's fair that after this, some began to ask serious questions as to whether the content had ever actually been good. Maybe they were just lucky in the niche they found, hitting a sweet spot between narrative and intrigue, but it still felt like they were working towards an image more carefully curated.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there is some body language nonsense that they've expressed in previous videos, but not compared to some of the other channels, dude. Some of these other channels that we have like come upon are just disgusting in terms of how they handle this sort of thing. I mean, and that's kind of like where we've discussed this sort of stuff about before. Like, and this is how that whole channel crashed out on me, because I said what I believe to be an extremely good viewpoint in which it's dangerous to not lean on analytical when it comes to this sort of stuff. Accurate analytics, because you get stuff like that channel where they care way more about sounding good than being good. And the normal person isn't going to know or care about the distinction. So it turns into this like, well, I'm just going to sound good. It's going to sound, I'm just going to make it sound interesting. Even though there's plenty to go off of. I feel like I've been doing this enough to literally prove to anybody that you can just talk plenty about plenty of true crime related tactics and psychological stuff, etc., without resorting to literal pseudoscience that has no backing whatsoever. None. So, also shout out to, I just remembered that channel, like the Explore With Us channel definitely tweeted at me saying that they were going to make like a slam piece about me and how body language is like proof or something. I definitely remember this. Right now? No, like during that, like whatever, when they were freaking out over me criticizing them, they said that they were going to release a video proving me wrong, essentially. Yeah, and they were like actively tweeting about the stream. This is so funny thinking about it because I remember responding to none of it except on stream. And I just remember them tweeting like a bunch of times, like even actively about the stream, like clearly actively watching me laugh about it. And I definitely remember seeing a tweet basically being, "We are going to be releasing a video soon on the science of nonverbal communication." And did they? I certainly didn't get told. I feel like he would have dropped it and been like, waiting for the science to exist. They probably watched Lie to Me. They were probably watching Tim Roth go crazy. Maybe The Mentalist. They were probably watching The Mentalist and being like, oh, that's so funny. I totally forgot about that. I totally forgot about him being like, "I'm going to release a video soon proving you wrong."
Creative.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is a channel that had, when met with support when facing down YouTube, promised that they would repay their audience. And unless they were sending checks out in the mail, this was a very strange way to repay people. Then you look beneath the surface and you see the people reporting that they had a pattern of erratic and abnormal behavior, including the not unsubstantiated claims that their major conflict with YouTube was largely exaggerated from a monetization dispute. That they silenced people who caught them out for this. They've been curiously possessive over content, even stuff that has been removed. It begins to look like this isn't really a team in touch with creator struggles in the way they claim to be. That their public persona is more an emulation of what other content creators have gone through in the past. You begin to wonder whether this is a channel really invested in the platform's well-being, or whether it was just a smokescreen. Maybe that's all intertwined with the use of AI because it's another mechanism that allows them to control the perception of their identity. Yet you still find the lack of calculations in all the opportunities they've squandered. The fact they've never taken any measures to increase the reach of their monetization, their massive hiatuses, that their newest content is still allegedly just their old content being re-uploaded. They can't tell the difference between a private and an unlisted video. They had many of their major challenges facing the channel somewhat resolved, and yet they've continuously mishandled the opportunity to capitalize on them. For all the charges of manipulation, there are also the continuous examples of the generational fumbles at the hands of this team. This weird relationship between expedience and self-sabotage didn't start, but definitely climaxed with the December the 4th upload. And their vague explanations, although impossible to pass judgment on, don't fill people with confidence that this is a channel willing to really shift from this trajectory. I think it'll take more than one video this time around. Regardless of whatever financial incentives are available for cutting corners, the most profitable thing you can do as a creator whose voice matters is maintain a good relationship with your audience. Give them something familiar to come back to and support. It might just be too late though. Every channel has its heyday, and JCS had a fantastic one. One that many creators can only dream of. A successful Patreon, a plethora of monetized videos, and some of the most viewed commentary content in recent history. If that wasn't enough for them, nothing ever will be. Maybe this is enough though. Maybe they've had their fun. Maybe they're just cashing in on the last of their popularity before dipping. The simple fact is, I don't know. Sometimes that's the strength of analytical content, reminding people that interpretation is different from reality, and that even when everyone's allowed their opinions, we're not entitled to the truth. In a world where the search for answers and explanations
interesting.
only seems to intensify, there's no way we can read everyone's minds. And in the case of JCS, I'm quite comfortable in saying that I can't. I don't think anyone can. Given their status, they're kind of unreadable. But I don't think you need to. They learned the hard way that providing people with few leads doesn't necessarily mean they stop looking. And when you build a channel and audience of confident interpretations and ambiguous actions, you better hope you're not the one sitting on the other side of the interrogation table. Oh, and don't fucking use AI. So yeah, that was the video. A bit shorter than usual. I'm sure some people will be leaving comments about that. What can I say?
A bit shorter.
I don't
and it's
intentionally make my videos long.
73 minutes.
Sometimes I just talk a lot. But I hope you enjoyed. I want to give a big thanks to the editors. They've done a fantastic job. As always, a big thanks to the post editor, Vic Grimes. Great work. A big thanks to the thumbnail creator and the music curator. Excellent work. It's much obliged. Also want to give a big thanks to any artist whose art was featured in this video. As always, very pretty art, very good art. All of these will be in the description below. Big thanks to all my patrons, $10 plus patrons on screen now, but also big thanks to my $50 patron, Seri Stone.
Damn.
Thank you for your continued support of the channel. It means a hell of a lot. Also, thanks to today's sponsor, Odoo. I appreciate our time working together. I don't really have too much to add. I hope everyone's doing all right.
You sound so tired.
And treating yourself. Maybe it's a bit hotter where you are right now. Maybe it's a bit cooler. But either way, keep that homeostasis intact. And with that in mind, I'm the right opinion, and I will see you in the next one.
Damn, bro. Oh my God, bro. Yeah. I didn't know half of that. I had no idea the Sarah Boone case he implemented AI voiceover. That's disappointing. I mean, it's a weird line there because it's not like he did it without asking, because the person's voice, the person is like, yeah, I gave him permission and he paid me the same thing. It just loses me on what the purpose of that is. If you're gonna pay for the effort anyway, but not take the effort, you're just gonna take the shortcut, but then pay for the effort. It just, yeah, like why? But I guess that kind of goes into the ending of this video where it's like, it just seems like there's just weird stumbles in the thought process of this channel, random at random times, for sure. Yeah, it's weird to pay the same price for a shittier version. Exactly. Like, that's so lost on me. It's like, why even pay? Like, I don't know, man. It's weird. Really strange, dude. It's disappointing. I mean, yeah, because like it's disappointing. But maybe once again, I mean, I'm one of those people that probably caught on to JCS in the heyday, so I'm used to the high quality of which they created the videos, and apparently this isn't abnormal behavior based off of people who are Patreon supporters. It's a bit baffling. I mean, I saw minimal problem with the most recent one. I mean, people said that it's apparently just a restructured Patreon video, but also like, I mean, he moved off of Patreon anyway, so it's like, if he wants to put that out there somewhere, isn't that like totally fair for him to just like put it back into a public sphere if he removed it from the other one? Kind of like, I feel like that's a fair thing for him to do. There's just, don't fucking use AI, man. There's just no point. There's just no point. And it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter if AI gets so good that it's indistinguishable from human effort. the soul being there is what makes a video a video. It's what makes a creator a creator. It's what makes content good. Like, AI generated slop videos may get over the radar of a lot of people, but that doesn't change the fact that you're serving gruel as opposed to a 5-course dinner. And it's just not right. Like, ethically, it's just gross. Ethically, environmentally, all of the things. It's just not good. Like, and I mean, oh my God, bro. I mean, we could go into another whole tangent about AI usage after another video react like we did previous, where it's like, I mean, literally that study that proved people got lazier, less creative, and wrong from repetitive AI usage. Like, because the sheer reliance on cutting that corner stifles creativity, etc. It absolutely does. How many of you don't know how to fucking cook? A lot of you. A lot of you. I feel like I forget how to cook because half the fucking time I'm looking up recipes and I'm just following what it says. I'm not cooking. I'm following direction. And I'm sure a lot of you do this. And you know what that does? It stifles your creativity, because rather than going into a recipe and manipulating it to how you see fit and being creative with it, you're just following a list of demands, and you're not adding your own twist to it or your own creativity, your own creative thoughts. And that's a microcosm of all the consequences of AI usage, etc. That is, yeah, but that's how you get better at it. Exactly. Experimentation and creativity within your cooking is how you get better. I made blueberry pancakes this morning. I've made that shit ever. You know what I did? I burnt half of them. You know why? Because I cooked them for on too high of a temperature. Thank you. You're so cool. Do they have it? Oh, okay, cool. I brought me ice cream. She's the goat. But yeah, I made blueberry pancakes this morning, and you know what? I burnt one side of half of them. I know why though. Because I cooked them on too high of a temperature. And I may have used, I could use more baking powder, but it's not like instructions tell me that, by the way. It's not like instructions say to not use a higher temperature because you're going to burn one side without being able to flip them. You have to learn these things. But I might make some fire-ass blueberry pancakes round 2. We'll see. Still up in the air. But am I chewing ice cream? It's got waffle cone on the top of it. Sorry. Like, it's worth looking up this information, knowing like I looked up pancake batter not because I don't know how to make pancake batter, but because I don't want to get the measurements wrong. Because baking is a very precise art, and if you put too much of one thing, it'll ruin it, as a lot of you know. I typically look up stuff like that because I don't want to get the measurements wrong, not because I don't know how to do it. Pancakes are so fucking easy. It's literally flour, sugar, water, salt, baking powder, egg, milk. That's it. Like, it's literally so simple. It's the specifications of what to put in and how much that matter. Fries and brownies somehow being hollow. That's too much baking powder. No. Maybe. Baking powder essentially makes gas bubbles within your bake. And that's why stuff rises, right? So when you put too much, there's too many gas bubbles being made, so all that space is being created. Too much rise. Ha! I was right. Hell yeah. Yeah, you put too much baking powder, man. But you wouldn't have known that. You wouldn't have known that if you didn't make that mistake. You wouldn't have figured that out. It's fascinating, dude. Like, just don't fucking use AI, man. Convenience is a curse. And it'll kill your ability to be a person. Legitimately.